Two samurai stand apart from each other, their honor, their hatred just on the surface of their eyes. A city burns in the background, ash blowing through the air like the leaves of a cherry blossom tree. The wind moves the grass slightly as each of them prepares for their last battle. So today, we are going to delve into a small, semi small indie game known as a single moment as we continue to talk about games that include all the feels. Yeah, these are role playing games that utilize emotion and feelings as their primary interaction. Guys, wait for the bumper. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I get it. The show doesn't start exactly at 6 a.m. because every time I get ready to start the show, my it seems like everything spikes. My audio goes wild and it goes into the red, and I gotta wait for it to calm down a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what that's about. So this is a little thin. Thank you, there, Drew. Um, I hope you're getting something out of this, Drew, because you actually sparked me to do this week. So all the feels we're going to delve into this. At this point, this version of it's very thin. Let's see, about 30 pages. Yeah, 30 pages. Um, and it is a two-player game. And this particular game uh, centers on two samurai about to do battle. And as a matter of fact, the like many of these very highly focused indie games, the beginning of the game, how the game is set up, is it is prescribed in many ways, and that prescription is necessary to engender a particular feeling. Now, I've read some comments about uh, what some of these indie games that produce feelings that there isn't very much player agency. I would argue that there's plenty of player agency, but what's happening is um, when the creative spark happens, it is very difficult to focus your creativity with a blank canvas. And you guys have heard this before. If you give someone a painter a plain white canvas and all the paint colors in the world, it's difficult to start. But if you give them three colors and tell them it must represent a particular person, place, or thing, that's where the creative spark comes from. And this game is very much that. This game, at either both players will die or one of them will die and succeed. And the game starts at the duel in which these two player characters will confront each other. Now, there, as we get into uh, the the second edition of the game, either called a second moment or a single moment second strike, there is a solo play and multiplayer version of it. The 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 multiplayer version is very easy. You just because as the scenes are set up, and I'll explain what the scenes are. As those scenes are set up, you'll understand. Oh, you can easily have a tabled group of individuals um, deal into this game. So I'm trying to share out a bit of this. Here we go. There it is. We'll share this out. So um, this is the beginning of the game. Now I have both. I have the a single moment in print. The information is listed below, and the second edition of it, which was placed together. There were so many people inspired by the game that the writer gathered together all of the permutations and hacks and put them together into a document to then put that out. So I think that's kind of cool to have someone who was so appreciative of their community that uh, uh, Toby Abad put it all together and put it into the second edition, which is kind of cool. But uh, a single moment is basically um, the conflict of these two samurai. And every single moment game begins at the end with the two samurai facing each other on a fight to the death. For some, this is upon a field with swords drawn and tension soaring. For others, this might be at court or atop rooftops. What matters is the friendship that once existed between the two samurai is gone, and the demands of honor must be met. How it ends, however, is not revealed until all the events in the past are remembered. These events are played through a series of flashbacks called chapters. Each player takes a turn establishing what the chapter is about and help forge the narrative that led to the final fight. So, um, this game does a hard focus on how these interactions happen. So, this is called a Hammond. I'm not sure if this is another language or what have you, but this is a conflict sheet for each of the conflicts that happen between the samurai. And like I said, there are other what they call play sets that have so many different settings that you can use. But for right now, we're going to focus on the samurai. Now, um, in this upper left corner of this play sheet, this chapter heading, you will list the names of the characters that are involved. Now, down to the left, you have hatred, edges, and scars, and across the top, you have hatred, edges, and scars. And as the game progresses, as each scene is established, there will be um, virtues and a focus and characters that are involved in the scene. And the goal is you're to role play out these sessions. Now, the strange thing about the beginning of the game, knowing that one or both of you will die, as you play through the chapters, neither one of you are going to die because these are all flashbacks. These are all social interactions. These are interactions within the world and other individuals that brought you to this moment. And the goal is each of you is trying to, I don't want to use the word one up. Each player is trying to get the other player to acquiesce to a loss by maneuvering them uh, socially and dramatically and through role playing and social interaction into a corner they can't back themselves out of, and then and looking at the other player like, yeah, okay, you got that, and handing over these coins. There's each chapter begins with 7 of these coins or tokens, and those tokens are handed to each other when you are able to back the other person into a corner. And the person that ends up getting backed into the corner starts gaining hatred. That's the first hex in these. You start gaining hatred when your virtues are tested, and it's difficult for you to navigate out of the virtues. Um, Other than hatred, you gain edges. Edges mean that you succeeded. So the person that air quotes failed in the social interactions starts gaining hatred. The person who succeeded, who backed them into that corner, gains an edge. And then lastly, you have scars. And scars are, while at the end of the battle, many times scars are a physical thing, scars are conditions, lasting conditions that the players start gathering together. It could be a loss of status, guilt, fears, um, hits to your social mobility, and things of that nature. Scars are essentially a trauma that you're carrying around with you. And th- like I said, this character sheet can look, not character sheet, this chapter sheet can look a little bit confusing, but it actually makes a bit of sense. For example, the katana separates the uh, essentially slices across this character sheet to separate one thing from another. So in this chapter, you will have key characters, and you see the little cat slip resting there with the key characters. Um, You can add a catalyst, the coveted, or the victim into the social navigation as a um, subject that is being discussed and forcing each of the players back and forth into their discussions of it. So, um, a victim doesn't necessarily need to be someone that's injured, but it could be um, a merchant, it could be a noble that's being taken advantage of, a family member, or something like that. The coveted could be a person, place, or thing that one or both of them wants. Usually, this tends to be one-sided. Like, maybe one player has a very beautiful sister that the other player wants to marry and be betrothed to, but the one player character is like, I don't want you marrying my sister, dude. That's a little too close. Sounds icky. The catalyst can be the thing that forces the two characters into conflict in the first place. Maybe both of them are loyal to the local daimyo, but they're being ordered to perform a brutal act. And so one doesn't want to perform it. The other one's challenging the other player, like, you need to follow instructions, your duty. Now, there are, in the original game, there are virtue cards. And in the original game, I'll hold this up. There are these virtue cards. You can just write these down, but they suggest that you photocopy it or get a copy and shuffle them around. And each chapter will deal with like loyalty, honor, um, rectitude, courage, uh, maybe benevolence and mercy, respect, honesty, sincerity. And the idea is that using virtues as well as the other elements. Let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger for those that are watching. As well as using the subjects of either like the catalyst, the coveted, or the victim, you navigate socially by trying to one up the other player character. And it's very a bit interesting, right? Because you're as the scenes are created, each player goes back and forth to create the scene. So one player who creates a scene is specifically trying to trap the other player, and you go back and forth. And the rules do say, like, if neither of you can come to a conclusion, none of you gain anything from that scene. So there is a little bit of there's a meta to it that not only are you trying to one up your other person that you're playing with, but you need to leave enough space because they're going to have the next chapter of why you guys hate each other. And so it's both conflict, like adversarial role playing, but at the same time, if you're too adversarial, remember it's going to be the other person's turn and they can set you up too. So it is a bit of a collaborative adversarial nature to this game. Now, on the other end of this, the samurai blade, you have the moment you cross the line, the promises, or that time we still trusted each other. And so using virtues, using key characters, and then either one of the three using either the moment you cross the line, the promises, or that time we still trusted each other. Once one player kind of breaks that and or does it multiple times, tokens are handed to each of the players, and that's how you gain hatred, edges, and scars at the end when everyone agrees that, or either of us agree that the scene has ended. It sounds a little complicated, but it's really pretty simple. Basically you need a six-sided dice, a bunch of them, and preferably light colored ones for edges and darker ones, black ones, white ones for edges, black ones for hatreds, whatever colors you have. And the hatreds are um, you start to build hatred for your opponent. And yes, the hatred could help you, but it can also hinder you. And there are rules, mechanical rules for that in this game. A single moment. It was pretty. I find it pretty interesting that how this game tends to uh, move move things forward. So I'm going to show you. This is a quick guide. Uh, rather than even reading the whole book, there's a one-page quick guide. It looks a bit intricate, but essentially you have an opening scene, and this is kind of cool because the opening scene does give you a bit of a it does give you a something you could read aloud you portray and you read aloud to the other person. So in the opening scene, you say, "I am," say your name, "of clan," give a name. "This is my story. It is," and then you go back and forth with the setup and the events. So you say, "It is during the time of," and then you fill in the era or circumstance. And then the other player says, "We stand upon," and you fill out a location. And then come, "It has taken us," and you fill in a duration, 5 years, 2 months, 8 days, whatever, "to come to this single moment. This is a story about," and then you fill in the virtue. And so that's the opening scene. Basically, both players declare like, I what your name is and what clan you're from. This is my story, and you discuss like what time period it is and where are you standing before this battle takes place, and it's taken us how long to get here. And the duration part of it can be pretty interesting because the duration could be a few days or it could take place over years. As a matter of fact, they even suggest this could even take place generationally, that you are a third generation samurai going up against someone from a rival clan, and you're here to solve the conflict that's been happening over these years. And so then you can portray individuals from each clan through family and whatnot, that maybe one player has the child that in the next scene that child has grown to become, say, a teenager, and because so many years have passed. Pretty interesting. um as far as the chapters go, the players alternate as active players. You draw two virtues, choose one for the chapter, decide if a key character is involved, like the catalyst, the coveted, or the victim, and then decide if a key focus is involved, such as that time we still trusted each other, the promises, or the moment you crossed the line. And these are prompts or hints to get you to really direct or focus your interactions with each other. And like I said, you can set up, it is designed to set up the other player. So if I'm active, I'm trying to set you up. So I could describe the scene as having the victim, let's say someone's bleeding and they may die. And um, I could claim, as adding into the narrative, the moment you cross the line, that you struck this person who's dying. Now we have to discuss, do we save their life, knowing that this person knows that you crossed the line and that might harm your honor, or you could kill them and we could hide it, which could also be dishonorable for not admitting your mistake or something. And I've backed your character into a corner, which would probably get you, meta wise, might get you upset. Like, wait a minute, why did I accidentally harm this person and what's the reasoning behind it? And then when it's the other player's turn for it to be active, they can then put me into a situation about like, maybe someone finds out about this murder we tried to cover up or something, or it was a, a cousin that was injured accidentally or whatever, because we thought they were sneaking in, but they were really trying to. They came from far away and decided to sneak into, sliding the rice paper walls and sneak into the household, and we thought it was a murderer or something like that. And then on the right side of this chart, we have playing a character. So you get like 7 choice tokens. And choice tokens basically mean like the choices that each person makes during the scenes. And there's seven tokens. They're odd numbered on purpose because someone is going to come out on top in some kind of way. Maybe because you end up having to roll the dice as well. But when those tokens are handed out, one person could get 3, one person gets 4. So by virtue of the end of the chapter, one person's going to have more edges than the other, and the person who has the least number of edges can roll those dice to gain hatred to try to overcome the edge that the other player has got. So yeah, when a decision favors a player, token goes to the other player. It's kind of funny. Um, and then you roll off dice for a maximum of 7, equal to the number of tokens that you have. And then you get +2 dice if a key role is in a chapter, and +2 dice if a virtue is aligned during that chapter. And then you get +1 die per scar that's accepted. And like I said, scars don't need to be physical. Or it could be. Someone could lose an eye or get a pinky cut off or something like that. Uh, or be permanently injured because of some kind of conflict or whatever. But a scar could also be something psychological as well. And then here we have the winner. The winner equals edges. The winner gets edges equal to the tokens. Um, the loser gets hatred equal to the tokens and +1 die with the result of +3. Or 3 plus. So when they roll the dice, they also gain an extra die for every result that's 3 or over. And then on ties, both characters get edges, and then there's a choice of gaining hatred or other active player gets a scar. So in a tie, you can kind of like bargain a little bit. Like, well, let's see, do we both get edges, or is there a choice of gaining hatred? And then there's also the ability to deal with uh, stacking hatred in this game. You can either channel it to like focus your hatred to gain to because you want to gain revenge, or you can let go of the hatred in this game as a samurai. So there are ways to deal with it, and you can lose if you let go of the hatred. You can lose scars equal to half the hatred lost. So you're kind of like, well, I'm not limited, but I'm also losing the hatred inside of me, which could possibly let me win, um, or like let go of it. And then, of course, in the finale, the person with the most hatred gets to attack first. The attacker gains 1 edge per die, and then the defender gets 1 die free. And then you start to alternate the exchanges. One person's the aggressor, the other person aggressor, etc., etc. And then when your edges run out, there's a killing blow, um, where there's greater than 10, uh, as you start scarring each other until one of you falls. Pretty interesting. Now, the the um, the fans of this game decided to make and produce many different. Um, let's see if I can find it here. So they decided to make many of these like play sets and use the 7 virtues and open declarations and make them different. And in this sense, we have a ton of them that that they've created for everyone. And many of these are kind of cool. I wonder if I can. Well, I did the double opening. Let's see if I can make this even bigger here. There we go. All right. So here we have uh I guess there's maybe 30 new playsets. So here's Angels and Demons. Uh, this says the forces of heaven and hell converge. Star-crossed friends and lovers struggle to stay together during this divine war. Half-naked beefcakes with too much eyeliner brood sensually, and tank-top-clad women realize they've been the chosen one this whole time. And so it's about angels and demons clashing with each other. And we can go on with many of these. I'll just page through some of these. Creation. This one's cool. Basically, two godlings are at the beginning of time and space to create the world, and they are in competition with each other. Or maybe they decide to get together to create the world, and they're in competition on how that world will be shaped. These are gamers. It's kind of funny. Uh, this is a single moment between 2 role players. You know, we've had that one game before. Tensions flare, friendships are tested, or even broken. Favoritism, rules lawyering, or poor playtest feedback constrain even the hardiest friendships. This is the story of how it all went south, and the the virtues. There's usually an odd number, usually 7 of them, and they have the different virtues that you can when you have the different chapters coming together and you role play those out. Let me go back to Angels and Demons. So over here, some of the virtues are good and evil, vulnerability, power, sensuality, differences, faith, and sacrifice. And then it even has a sample of an opening declaration, like, I am the one called blank, you fill in your name, and I am older than time itself. This is the story of my final days on Earth and the story of Earth's final days. And then it goes on to say, I would move heaven and earth to reconcile with, and the partner's name, but no one said anything about hell. And then it says, when you become an angel, they never tell you about demons. You have to figure out the hard way. This is the story of how I found out. And then lastly, it says, the distances that separated us transcend time and space. This is the story of how I broke out of hell and brought heaven crashing down to earth. And then you tell that story. So there's gamers. Here's one about gladiators, which sounds like it really fits into this into the narrative, right? Two gladiators on a battlefield. I could see this taking place only within 20 minutes, right? Their virtues are glory, skill, discipline, guts, showmanship, desire, and cunning. And this would be like the role playing between the weapons clashing till there's no more words to be said, and then they just go for it. We have a Knight's Tale, makes sense, right? Mecha Aces, of course, the giant mecha robots and whatnot. Um, Opposing politics, that one makes sense as well. Maybe you might not come, although it could come to death blows. It could be those blows could come during an election cycle or something. So of course there's, with politics you have alliances, money, scandal, seduction, deals, sacrifices, hope. And then there's over the top pulp action, a photographer, professional wrestlers. It's kind of funny. Look at the bottom right corner. For professional wrestlers, there's a little rope. Um, we have romantic comedy and space opera, and ship captains and spies. Such spies. Why use such words? Such spies. Um, Superheroes. There's the briefcase for the spies. The Wild Wild West, Wizard School, woodland creatures. There's the hat for the wizards. Uh, Wuxia warriors, and then there's even a uh, detective stories. How would you run this game as detective stories? So instead of confronting the other player character, what you do is you're detectives trying to uncover a crime, and the people you are questioning in relation to the crime are your opponents. Whether so, success by the detective means they're gaining an edge over the criminal faction or murderer or something, and then hatred and scars. The hatred can come from being foiled, or the criminal is having hatred because you're gaining more evidence against them and things like that. That's really cool. And then it goes through the chapters and how to run rewriting the game to make it detective stories. And then these are some more play sets. We've got the corporate war. We've got geniuses from like mathematicians, philosophers, psychologists, physicists. There are those who devote themselves in the systematic pursuit of knowledge, and you're arguing over some esoteric bit of knowledge or something. We've got the hounds of war, mercenaries against each other, music artists, Oshi and Wota, which I'm not familiar with. Music artists, um, Reddick matters, conspiracy, Sapphire heroes, times of strife. Talking about families. The world has changed. We live in a new normal. No one knows yet for sure what is happening. All we know is that we are afraid, and we are being told that to stay safe we have to obey. Rebelling against overlords. Twisted myths as well. Underwater critters. And then there's another set called War of the Colossi, and it goes into a whole set, including its own character sheet, defeating colossal monster that may destroy a town, and opening statements on that. And then there's even some more play sets like the card flipper, gambling, basically. Empires is here, the rise and fall of empires, and coming to terms with which empire will last for a millennium. The final ball, dance dance competition. Yeah, you got to do some breakdancing or something like that, right? Then there's Lovecraftian horror. And man versus monster. There's King Kong, I believe. Primetime drama. This is funny. Definitely embraces the social problems, right? Oh man, yeah. The treasure, collecting the treasure, finding treasure, zombie apocalypse, etc., etc., etc. So there's so many different ways to play this. But what? So to let you get out of here, what I like about this says while you take, I imagine how I would do that in my system, and it's very different, which I think is a good thing since it allows me to have eventually a similar scenario. If I gather what you're saying is that, like many of the games that I've been not just reviewing, but like describing how the game is designed to focus you into an emotional state, the this game doesn't tell you how to feel, but what it is doing is that it is setting up scenarios. Let's go back to this. It's setting up a scenario so that it has the greatest chance of getting basically under your skin. It's setting up a scenario where actually I can even get this even bigger. There we go. Um, sorry, move this cursor out the way. It is setting up a scenario to gain hatred, edges, and scars by inserting things into the this the chapter, where we have this conflict, this social conflict. So we can have one or more of these key characters, like the catalyst, the coveted, or the victim, and whose fault it is, who's responsible for them, and your connection to them, and then the by matching the virtues in the scene. So you have key characters, you have the virtues in the scene, and lastly, one of three things that may happen in the scene as a focus, like the moment you cross the line, the promises, or that time we still trusted each other. And by creating a scene that challenges the other person across the table from you, they have to respond. Now, remember, like improv, the minute you introduce something, you, once it's introduced, it becomes real. You can't edit it away. Now, what you could do to set up, and this actually lends itself to a good thing, what you could do is when someone introduces something, for example, let's say the player you're playing across from claims that you committed a crime. And in your head, you're like, my character would never do that. That's not the personality of the person I'm playing. Um, Misunderstandings, misinterpretations, um, words spoken out of turn is exactly where the conflict can come from. Because the one player goes, my character would never murder someone, who says that out loud. Then it's about beliefs, and that's where the conflict comes in. So literally creating the scene can create the conflict, because on one hand, one person is trying to trap the other player, and the player being trapped is going, I don't understand why you're trying to trap me. Now you're doing this in game. For example, I could say that I find your character standing over a dead body, and that dead body is someone that was a family member, right? A younger sibling or something. And then you now are going, well, my character would never do that. And then I turn around and say, it wasn't me, it was someone else. And then does my character believe that? And if that is the case, if I believe it, you start adding more and more features into the scene. Was it a criminal? Do I even believe you? Is it more honorable? Maybe there's another character involved, like the catalyst, that knocks on the wants to slide the rice paper door open to find out what the heck happened here. Someone's got to pay for this. Do you have your ally now pay for it, who's standing over the dead body of a sibling? So all these situations start building and building and building. And so this gives you the tools to do that, instead of having a blank scene with no particular direction you're trying to go. No, you're trying to trap each other, right? Because on to defend yourself, you could say, well, why don't you believe that I didn't do this thing? Don't you trust me? Why aren't you on my side? Um, you should speak up against the daimyo you are in league with and be on my side. And other person says, why would you even ask me to break my honor to do such a thing? And so there are many rules of court in this game, and doing that lends it, like I said, it gives you enough elements so that as you're playing the game, it lends itself to these samurai that are going to kill each other. The other um, the other thing that I really like about this game is that um, we already know what the end result is. And so we know when the game starts that both characters are going to fight each other, and either they'll both die or one will live. Who was right or wrong, we'll figure that out as the game progresses. But we know at the beginning of the game, one of you is going to die. The other thing we know is that as we play out these odd numbered um, numbers of chapters, we know that neither one of us will die, because otherwise there would be no flashback, which means that the vast majority of this is about social conflict. Now, it could be that one player could get arrested or exiled or become ill for a long period of time. I mean, the thing is that with death off the okay, the very beginning of the game is a scene that's going to lead to the very end of the game where either both or one will die, which means that all the chapters, the worst thing that can happen isn't death, but it doesn't mean it's going to be nice, right? So someone could be imprisoned for 30 years. And then when we flash back to the actual conflict, it could be a um, Count of Monte Cristo kind of thing where you know both samurai are elderly when this thing happens. But remember, in the beginning of the game, you do decide how much time has passed from the initial moment till now. So if you say 8 months, you really can't play out a scene where the person is trapped for 30 years, unless you want to add something. You want to add some time travel and mysticism and things like that. This is technically a non-magical type of thing, but flavor doesn't really matter to itself, right? Someone could be exiled or sent to another plane of existence, and then come back 1,000 years later, um, to have that fight that happened, conflict that happened only 3 hours ago, right? As we play through these different scenes, and like I said, there's different types of play sets, easy to hack. This could be a boardroom confrontation. This could be a confrontation over um, you know, parental rights over a child. This could be a psychic battle happening between two individuals standing, in the middle of a major city and staring at each other. And these are like mental battles happening across each other in a psychic astral plane or something. You could come up with all kinds of conflicts. But essentially, the game starts out where each person states who they are, kind of their purpose, and very generally what the conflict is about. And then we do flashbacks, um, gang warfare, um, hunting a serial killer, um, two professors arguing about. It could be like uh, ancient Greece, Socrates and philosophers arguing. Heck, it could even be two mountain climbers that have had issues with each other, and they're both standing at the precipice of a giant mountain about to push each other off of a cliff and fight each other, and why it is that they have this conflict building as they start going up. Anakin, ooh, Anakin and Obi-Wan. You know what? Yeah, 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 yeah. That that fits in that fits in excellently. I don't know why, and I've been wearing my Star Wars T-shirts every day. Why didn't I think of that? Thank you very much. You get the slow clap on that one. Yep, Anakin versus Obi-Wan. That's exactly what it is. As a matter of fact, the classic Jedi Sith, um, lightsaber duel was literally pulled from Samurai. I mean, George Lucas even admitted that. So yeah, yeah, all the rest of it fades away because it's basically two highly skilled individuals that are in conflict with each other who are on opposing sides, and one of them is building hatred towards the other, and that hatred is easy and is fueling them, but it can also lead to having psychological and physical scars, right? Um, Although at the towards the end you can get rid of the scars, maybe getting rid of the scars is cybernetics and whatnot. I mean, it's all kind of cool. I mean, heck, even the scene where Anakin, I've got the high ground, absolutely fits into this game because you can very easily go um, because it's just the game is about getting a dice pool. You're trying to get the biggest dice pool you can, the the largest number of edges, and you don't want your hatred pulling you down. You're trying to focus your hatred so you can use that hatred to gain more dice instead of less. Um, and of course, as at the end of the chapters, and you have this giant dice pool, you can tell who's got the most hatred because you'll see the black dice versus the white dice. I've got 10d6, half of which are the black dice, whereas the other one might have like 6d6, but they're all the white dice. I'm looking at you, Obi-Wan, with that, you know. But yeah, when Obi-Wan cuts off Anakin's arm and legs, right? Or did he cut off his legs? I can't remember. Cut off his arm and legs, and he's burning there. That can literally be the end of a chapter. Now, the next chapter may have taken many years to get to the different point where the player's like, I return as a cyborg or whatever, filled with hatred and whatnot. And you're like, that's kind of cool. So it absolutely positively feeds into uh, the Star Wars Jedi versus Sith canon of conflict, breaking apart, coming back, telling another chapter of the story, coming back, and then having the ultimate showdown. Now, mind you, is it the giving up and sacrificing themselves to turn into a psychic ghost? That maybe that's pushing it a little bit too far for this game, but I think there's a way to do it. It In the second edition of A Single Moment, they do talk about the multiplayer version of it. And in the multiplayer version, while you do have to tweak things a little bit, it's basically the game master against the players. The game master sets up a chapter, a scene essentially, and uh, basically comes through as this play sheet shows. You start adding in the key characters. Uh, the catalyst, the coveted, the victim, adding one or more of those into the scene, and then you have a virtue that the players are being challenged on, as well as these three other things about broken promises and such. And in a way, the in multiplayer, the players are kind of working together, but they can also be not antagonistic. That's not the way. Um, some players may be gunning for a particular outcome that the other players aren't. And then the game master basically disseminates edges, hatreds, and scars amongst the player characters. So it requires a little bit of tweaking, but actually not much compared to this game. And now mechanically, what everyone is trying to do is gather a big giant dice pool for the last scene. But in a weird way, in a multiplayer game, you can take the players know that there will be a final battle of some sort, whether it's physical or one against status or economics or what have you, reputation, that will ultimately come to an end. So it begins and ends with this story, and in the middle is all the flashback, which means that all the story in the middle, you don't worry about hit points. You don't have to worry about like strength checks or anything like that. It's all story in the middle to elicit an emotion of, and those emotions can be honor and justice and truth and nobility. They can be frustrations and hatreds and envy and um, violence and such, knowing that there's going to be another chapter and another chapter. So in a really weird way, there are two things happening simultaneously in this game. Um, there's a good chance one or more of you will die, and then yet you're telling a story where we're playing through scenes where none of us are going to die, in a role-playing game. And as I've said many times on the channel before, death is just being able to not progress with your character. So um, char- the physical act of having physical death doesn't need to be on the table. It could be exile, imprisonment, um, loss of status, loss of economic viability, loss of memories, things like that, loss of honor, and walking away or becoming Ronin, or being the one that's supposed to defend your kingdom or your daimyo or something against the onslaught of your rival player who murder kills your daimyo, and now you're a Ronin because you failed in your quest and you go off to commit seppuku. And yeah, I mean, there's many of these kind of stories in this, so I think this is kind of cool. So, guys, thank you very much for letting me introduce you to this game. Let me stop sharing this out. Letting me introduce you to this game, A Single Moment, and it is one of a number of games that I've shown here about feelings and how emotion drives the story forward. Like I said, the success failure of gaining the the tokens, the choice tokens, which become dice for your dice pool, is all about uh, verbally navigating someone else and trapping them into a corner to gain you some successes and putting hatred on the other person. And it just builds to the very end as does the other person become consumed with their hate, or do they overpower you and take their revenge and whatnot? And how do you defend yourself against them? Are you are you being filled with hate because this other person is taking things the wrong way? Kind of cool, kind of cool. See how the book keeps blocking the light, turning it very orange in the background. It's kind of strange. It's kind of cool. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much for the prompts there, Drew. As you made me think about role-playing games that really focus on emotions as their primary goal. Because this game isn't. Yes, there's a final conflict. Yes, there's big dice pools being rolled. Yes, it's edges versus hatreds, but the meat of the game is playing out these scenes, and that's it where the spark really shines. It's not really about winning, it's about engaging in the story, and that's the win condition. So yeah, different games, different ways of doing it. Maybe we might even do a summary at some point, or pick some other games that have a bit of a um, like a special mention or something. I don't know. Maybe we might do that, but it's still kind of cool. Let me see if I can show you one more thing. I think I have it up here. Let's see. No. There. There. I think I showed you everything. Yeah, that's it. Yep, that's it. Here's zombie apocalypse. Uh, the virtues of zombie apocalypse. Elements present in such a story include the following, and we've seen this many times before in a zombie apocalypse. We've got resources, we've got love, trust, infection, survival of the fittest, brains, guts, and glory, and acceptance and resilience. And so, yeah, I mean, even though the zombie apocalypse just absolutely fits into it, right? It's the it's all the trials and tribulations the survivors go through during a zombie apocalypse until the very end when the zombies overrun the group, and what do you do at that time, right? And it kind of cool. It almost lends itself to playing out a scene in a like a television show or graphic novel or movie. Drew says, I have to thank you. Great week of videos you're doing. Well, thank you very much. You're so bad. He's only got one leg, so he will be like the practice dummy. Then I will move up to the other neighbor for level 2. So bad, yeah. Um, well, thank you very much there, Drew. You know what? It got me to thinking because, we're technically we're role playing connoisseurs, right? We are polygamists that love the game design and how things are done, and each of us gets fun from the games. And I was thinking, like, there are games where winning isn't about like rolling a bunch of dice to beat up the bad guy. Some games are about something else. I hear you. Yeah, we're all instead of being infected, we're all looking down at our phones. Yeah, it's effed up. Yeah, there's an artist that did some great meme art that was about that. Um, Zombies and phones and things like that. Pretty fun. Pretty hilarious. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me introduce this game to all of you as well. Check out a single moment and some of these other games that are about enhancing the emotional experience you may gain from a game. And this, like many of the other games, emotions come in a rainbow of categories, and it doesn't necessarily need to be fear, even though there are many games that are fear associated, like like this zombie apocalypse. But there are other games that where that isn't, um, that isn't the case. That there are games where the purpose of the game is to, there it is. It's the second uh the second edition of the game. A second moment. A single moment and then a second moment. So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me delve into some of these games and give them a little bit of a spotlight. Polygamous, the ultra realistic near future transhumanist vampire planescape. Mm, you added in a whole bunch of things in there, didn't you? Yeah, yeah. I even thought about doing a little bit of a Vampire to Masquerade, like why, other than the bucket of D10s, because that was a big thing. Why was it that? What was it about Vampire to Masquerade and then the entire White Wolf takeover in the '90s that led to its enjoyment and bringing so many emos into the gaming sphere? And I would say I could break that apart for you guys and tell you where the emotions come from. Um, but yeah, lastly, we're taking out of here. Here's a single moment. The second edition is called a second moment. Samurai and so many other play sets. Have some fun. I might have my better plans for you. Yeah, I got plans too. So anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see you later. Bye. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here. I appreciate it. I hope I can then, in return, make change for your tabletop role playing experiences and your experiences in life. So have a great one. And of course, always a call to action. Peace.